Welcome to the Circuit de Catalunya at Barcelona. As you'll see, we are not inside the track. Unfortunately for the pre-season shakedown, we're not allowed to film inside the paddock, but that means we can have a chat just outside the gates. I'm joined by Alex Kalinauckas to go over everything that we saw at the circuit today. Obviously, the first chance to see all of the F1 22 cars running properly in anger. Alex, now you spent a lot of the day trackside this week at Tabard very early in the day. It was a pretty good day for Mercedes, Ferrari, the usual suspects at the top, McLaren as well. But from what you saw trackside, what cars really stood out in terms of, performing well in this early days?
What I wanted to do was basically think back to when I was in Abu Dhabi at the end of last year and think, well, we've got all these new rules and regulations. The cars look massively different in the studio shots and the launch events that we've been seeing over the last few weeks. So how do they actually compare to what I was seeing in Abu Dhabi? And it's really interesting. And I know this is going to sound kind of wishy-washy, but they look very different and very similar. They are, after all, still Formula One cars.
And I believe Lance Stroll used this similar kind of explanation.
Right, I'm on the same communication level as Lance Stroll. I'll take that.
But there is some logic to what you're saying. I mean, were you quite surprised though that they were so similar?
Because of the sort of renders that came out in like 2019, it was like, this new era is coming. They're going to look wildly different just because of the sort of CGI nature and everything. And they kind of do and they kind of don't. And it's a really weird sort of combination. It's mainly the big rear wings that you really notice, and the flick ups around what are still simplified. The bits on the end of the front wing end plates. So that's what you notice. The little bumps in the engine covers and things like that. But other than that, it's not a million miles off what we had last year, and I kind of think that's quite good, especially because it's like, although the visuals do look better, they look more attractive in still shots. They do look very nice trackside, and they're always everything's very clean compared to the clunky aero parts that you had before. The main point of these rules is the racing's got to be better.
Yes.
So even if the cars were hideous, which obviously we wouldn't want, if the racing's better, that's a good trade-off. So if they're not looking wildly different, but there's much better racing, then that's fantastic. But I know I'm going to sound like Lance Stroll again. It's too early to tell if that will happen. So I know we're going to come and chat to what I saw about a little
some things you can maybe pick up. I mean, obviously we can't go too much into who was looking good, but was there anyone that looked particularly bad? Were there any sort of moments that you saw that you thought, oh, that doesn't look so clean, so good?
Right, so it is a little bit tricky because obviously when you're just one person walking around, you can only see, I mean, as many of you will know as fans going on, you can only see literally, I don't know, sorry, this sounds very simple, but it's worth pointing out. You only see literally what's happening right in front of you at that particular moment. So one car might look awful in one corner and brilliant in another, and obviously the lap time, as we know, this is the nature of the test. The nature of the test of motorsport, that's what is the ultimate differentiator. But what was really noticeable, I thought, was that the cars that looked amazing last year looked, rotating really, really rapidly on the front end, just looking fast. Mercedes and Red Bull, you won't be shocked to learn that. However, the Ferrari was right up there as well. It looked very, very consistent when it was turning in with the corners that I was viewing, and I stuck to the first sector because it was good to get that sort of reference, and that's mainly what I did when I was last here in 2020, was just analyse bits of the first sector. So good to compare with that like for like. What I did notice actually was that what the predictions with the ground effect cars were, they're going to be faster in the fast speed corners, they're going to be slower in the slow speed corners. That absolutely comes to pass. And nowhere was that more evident, because there's not a lot of super high speed stuff here at Barcelona. By the way, if you're going to go to Silverstone this year, or any of like Austin, things like that, the swooping S sections are going to be truly spectacular. Nice. That's what I would pick up just from the aggressive turning into turn 3. But yeah, turn 4, amazing to see really how they are. All the cars are changed now. They look really slow, really cumbersome. Wow. They look like F2 cars, I'm not going to lie. Okay. That just from what I've observed, those junior single seater cars going through that corner, and it's the sort of wider nose that the rules require now with this new generation of cars, so they kind of look a little bit like F2 cars anyway in that sense. They really do when they're going through that corner. But anyway, at that particular spot, the Alpine, towards the end of the morning session, looked a real handful. Fernando Alonso, there was various points where he was having wild oversteer moments, and then it was the whole car just generally looked hesitant. Once he'd made the turn in first of all, and then it was like, oh, I can't quite get on the power yet because I'm still struggling with what's going on. Other cars were doing that to a certain extent, for example, the AlphaTauri, but the Alpine was the worst one. And what was really interesting was then I walked around the track to the next corner, that's turn 5, which is that sort of downhill plunging left-hander. Max Verstappen was locking up a lot there, several laps, more than anybody else. So quite a few drivers, Vettel in the Aston, Alonso again, Latifi in the Williams, they were all doing that towards the end of the session in the morning when they were pushing on. But Verstappen was noticeably quite inconsistent, whereas the Ferrari and the Mercedes didn't seem to be having so much trouble.
Interesting, very, very interesting. And there was one other aspect that you were very surprised by. You said it, and I was like, oh, I didn't realise that was a thing. But please, what did you pick up out there?
Right, so mainly I went out there to see what the new cars look like differently, and it was actually something I heard that was really stood out to me, and it was the first thing that I noticed. Have had it confirmed by other people who were also out trackside. It's basically with the bigger aero surfaces, for example, the rear wing, the bodywork around the sort of side pods in certain cases, so it's a little bit cold here, as you can see with the gloves that I'm and also with the ground effect floors and everything's being bigger. With the air hitting that, it's creating like a sort of, they're audibly different. It's like I know this is not very technical, but it's sort of like a whoosh sound that accompanies the engine noise, and it builds and builds and builds as they're going along the main straight. So you can really, they sound different. And I know that Lando Norris has commented on that as well, whether he was hearing the same thing as me when he sat in the engine and was certainly not, sat in the car and was certainly not with the engine on it. But it was just interesting, like, it's kind of interesting, like with the Formula E cars that I covered a few years ago, because they don't go very fast, but they've got these massive big surfaces. You can hear them swashing around. There's no noise at all from those engines, or very little. So power units, I should say. So anyway, it was a fun surprise, and just adds a little extra something when you can hear something a little bit different.
Definitely, yeah. And now the whole point of these new regulations was to improve the racing, and we've obviously put a lot of work into reducing dirty air and everything like that. I saw Charles Leclerc and George Russell for a few laps, sort of a couple of seconds apart, and that would have given them a bit of a read in terms of, is it easy to follow, which is what this is all about, basically. But in terms of overtaking, particularly in the braking zones, these cars are so heavy now. They're really, really, really a lot. Mick Schumacher said that it's a lot to get stopped. What did you notice in terms of like braking zones and things like that, which is where the overtake is going to happen?
Well, from what I saw at turn one, they're braking at exactly the same point. So what several of the drivers before the pre-season testing started were saying that maybe with these new cars you'll get larger ones because of exactly the point you're making then with the heavier cars and the ground effect as well. But from what I saw, and I checked out with some video from the race last year here, they're hitting the brakes at exactly the same point, the 50 metre mark. So it's not any smaller. Now, whether that has a big effect on overtaking, of course we can't know right now, because there's no genuine overtaking going on in testing. But if the rules work as F1 hopes, and they can follow each other closely at a track like this, which is notoriously bad for overtaking, they're closer out of the final corner, the short braking zone shouldn't matter as much. But it was a little bit of that's not good. If Formula 1 was hoping overtaking is going to be easier with a bigger braking zone, that doesn't appear to have happened. That is just one specific spot where I observed that. So I have to wait and see on that. But an interesting start to what we're seeing.
Definitely. And in terms of the timesheet state, it was Lando Norris who ended up finishing the day quickest for McLaren, went fast in the final hour, denied Ferrari what would have been a 1-2 finish. And I think some of the Tifosi on Twitter were getting quite excited about that, even though it's only day one of pre-season testing. But generally, what stood out for me was there were no red flags today. And I can't remember, I think on the drive here, I reckon I spent about a month of my life at this racetrack covering pre-season testing. And I don't think there's ever been a day where there's been no red flags and completely chill. I was really surprised by the amount of mileage that everyone managed to get in. I think only 2 teams failed to get over 100 laps in today.
Yeah, and those are the 2 teams that really hit trouble. So Haas, floor trouble for Mick Schumacher, particularly in the afternoon, but Nikita Mazepin in the morning had trouble. And Alpha, I'll be honest, I haven't been able to see the complete details, but no, they're having niggly little problems with bits in the morning. I don't know if that extended in the afternoon.
They didn't really expand in the afternoon in terms of what had happened, so we're still waiting to hear about that. But when I checked in with them in the morning, I think they had 4 laps on the board after a couple of hours, and they said, is that everything okay there? And they went, it's a few small issues, but we're sticking to the run plan. So not so sure about that maybe, but there's definitely work for I think Alpha and Haas to do to get back up on the mileage through the rest of the week. But we've got 2 more days of testing to go, obviously. As you said, your analysis is going up on Autosport.com Plus later today. It's already online, isn't it? We've got Matt Hughes' Autosport Plus analysis going online later. And plenty more to come from the Circuit de Catalunya over the next few days. Make sure you stick with us for all the latest news and analysis, of course. And we'll be back tomorrow with more podcasts. We've got more videos coming across the course of the week as well, as we try and get to the bottom of just who is in front as F1 2022 gets underway with testing.